So we're going to be talking today about why publishers should work with SMEs. I'm Luke, I am Publisher Director at Webgains, and I'm joined by Joe Hayes, who's Partnerships Director at Genie Shopping, and also my colleague at Webgains, Jack Davies, who is a Commercial Services and Partnerships Director. So SMEs play a vital role in the UK economy, with around 90% of all businesses falling into that category. They provide around 50% of the UK workforce, and so they're important not only from an economic viewpoint now, but also in training and providing opportunities for people to take forward into the future. From my point of view, it's relatively obvious why it should be of benefit for SMEs to work with some of the larger publishers within the affiliate sphere. So you have, some really big sites who are big brands in their own right. They have access to millions of members and users that SMEs may not have access to themselves. It's usually on a CPA or relatively cost-efficient basis. If you compare it to doing something like a TV campaign or out-of-home activity, it's usually much more accessible and much more cost-effective. And also then you're in front of all these users who are actively in market online looking to purchase. So, it makes a lot of sense. But I think the question we're looking at today, in some respects, can be a little bit harder to understand, which is what is the benefit for you as a publisher with working with SMEs when you're in demand and you can ultimately pick and choose who you work with? Why would you work with these smaller businesses? Firstly, before we kind of get into that, I would like to ask my guests to properly introduce themselves. So if we can start with Joe, if you could just tell us a little bit about your role, the company, and how you fit into the affiliate landscape, that'd be brilliant.
Great. Well, it's good to be here. So I'm Jo, and I work with Genie Shopping. I joined Genie Shopping in early 2018. Genie Shopping is a CSS service provider. We were one of the first to be whitelisted for the Google Shopping CSS program. We basically were in a great position to start with the service because we already ran comparison shopping sites and had done for many years, and we have our own in-house bidding technology, which put us in a really good place to start with the program. Since I've been at Genie Shopping, we literally started from scratch, totally new service. So 3 years of really building up the client base, making the proposition clear, a lot of education and informative work with potential clients and existing clients. And we had some really good early wins. So I'd say it's been quite a roller coaster, rapid growth journey. I'd probably consider ourselves an SME as well at this stage. So we now work with over 800 retailers across Europe, and growing really rapidly this year. Demand is really strong.
Brilliant, thank you. And Jack, what do you do over at Webgains?
Yeah, so I'm Jack. I'm the Commercial Services and Partnerships Director at Webgains, heading up our northern team based in Manchester. Been here for a year and a half now, maybe nearly 2 years. Having previously worked in the affiliate channel for advertisers, including Fanatics, Boohoo, and the Hook Group, more specifically MyProtein.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'll start with throwing out a question to Joe around your kind of current work and working with SMEs, and if you're able to kind of give some examples around how you work with them, how that maybe differs from working with some of the bigger advertisers that you might work with as well.
Yeah, sure. So I'd say, like most businesses, there's kind of the 80-20 rule. So, we have a smaller percentage of very large retailers that provide an awful lot of our business revenue. But we have a large number of much smaller clients. And I think since the early days when we started, we were trying to establish what works in the CSS space and what doesn't. So we worked with a huge range of retailers of different sizes. And I think when we're working with quite small businesses, sometimes we will begin a conversation before a retailer even has an affiliate program. So we're kind of working with them through the whole journey, helping them to find an affiliate network to work with, advising them on what the feed specifications are and what they need to put in place. So it's a really nice position to be in, actually, with growing businesses. I think we've also, we've even had retailers that are perhaps supplying locally initially, so not even nationwide, and they might be very niche. But when we have that opportunity to have a very direct conversation with them, and you're often talking to somebody maybe who started the company, or director level, and so you can really get under the skin of what they're doing and how they're trying to grow, and it just makes for a really nice relationship building. And then the impact that we can have and see on their sales and their growth is quite significant in some cases, and that's quite pleasurable. We enjoy that.
Yeah, it is always good to see it when you're seeing what the work you're doing is actually having a positive impact, and I think, kind of motivates you a little bit more in that respect, doesn't it?
It does, and I mean, there are great benefits to working with all types of retailers, but certainly when you can see the journey that a retailer's taking, and they may not have the expertise in house to be able to conduct shopping campaigns, for example, at a very sophisticated level, or to have the time to apply to those type of marketing channels. So we can really come in and on a low risk basis help them to grow very effectively and efficiently.
Great. And Jack, you've got a slightly different perspective being network side, but you do have experience on the advertiser side as well. So kind of what's your experience in working with SMEs?
Yeah, I think Webgains work with quite a large number of SMEs across all different verticals and territories, really. I think SMEs represent a really good opportunity to work with really fast growing, flexible brands, as Joe mentioned there. They tend to be open to more different publisher types, and whilst they've got really stretched targets, it kind of makes them a little bit more fun to work with. Especially having worked advertiser side at larger businesses, it tends to be a little bit slower. It's harder to sign things off. There's more people to get sign off for things. I think SMEs tend to work a little bit faster in that, and it is a lot more fun to do that. I think one brilliant success story we've had working with SME recently, who we've actually done a segment with for this Accelerate event, is DB, who was also formerly called Douchebags. They'd never done affiliate before. It was very new to them. They'd done paid channels, but never done too much. And it was just a completely new channel to them. And within 5 months, we were hitting 6-figure levels of revenue through affiliates alone, and hitting, I think it was like 11% of their total e-commerce revenue. So it's great to drive those results very, very quickly with fast-paced companies.
Yeah, brilliant. I think you touched on this in your previous answer a little bit, Joe, but obviously, we understand like I said at the start, the benefits from working with a company like Genie Shopping, and your reach and your ability to kind of, I guess, get them into places where they maybe don't have the expertise themselves. But I think across the board, looking away from just the CSS space, what sort of benefits do you believe you get from working with SMEs, or do you believe other publishers would get from working with SMEs?
Well, I think the benefit is certainly in having a long tail client base, a much bigger client base, covering a lot of verticals. So that helps us with analysis and understanding how the different vertical channels perform. It provides a lot of data back to us that we can then use to refine our services and to help advise clients, particularly on things like CPA levels. There were a lot of nuances. If we work with a retailer who doesn't do their own Google Shopping compared to somebody who has a big in-house team and they do a lot of it very well themselves, then the impact that we can make to their revenue, not just through the affiliate channel, but in some cases, we've seen retailers where we've driven up to 30% of their total online revenue. So it teaches us a lot, and it just gives us a really good insight and access to where the opportunities lie for new business going forward.
Yeah, definitely. It's very insightful when you're working with, I think, a large number of smaller companies, and you get that spread of insight when sometimes you can be a little bit kind of single view when you're working with just one big partner. You kind of see things from the way they see things and the way that their consumers act, when really that might not be the kind of way the consumer base is acting as a whole. So it is quite insightful. I think also from a business POV, like these companies, so they're maybe not that flexible, or sorry, they're maybe not financially, they have the clout of the big companies, but they do tend to be more flexible, like structurally. Like you said earlier, they kind of tend to be less hierarchical or smaller hierarchy, so you can talk to people at a more senior level and get things signed off quicker, turn things around quicker, pull together bespoke offers more quickly. And I think as a publisher, when you're working with these types of clients, it just makes your life easier. I know that when we're working with them as a network, it makes our lives easier. I think also as well, in like some cases, it's about kind of making a bet on someone and kind of thinking, well, you never know when a trend's going to come back around, or you never know which company is going to be acquired, or when you're going to suddenly see a massive growth in some company and it's going to be big. So I think partnering with people on the ground floor, so to speak, it does like open up opportunities for you as they grow because they see you as a valued partner. So I think dismissing people, based on the fact that they're maybe not the biggest company in the world, or they haven't done much initially, can kind of come back to bite you in some cases. What do you think about that, Jack?
Yeah, I would 100% agree, and I think the other point I would always have in this, and I think the pandemic, is massively changed the way we think. But there should be no hesitation that publishers should work with SMEs, because consumers are looking at products. So product trends massively impact them, whether where we're going to get these products from. So, for example, personal experience here. For my girlfriend, for her birthday, we were looking for one of these blanket hoodies, and I think the brand that's best known is the Oodie, but I didn't know that at the time, so I was searching for like massive blanket hoodie, or I didn't really care what site it came from. All I wanted was a good price, delivered quickly, and maybe to sort of see Klarna options or PayPal options just for ease and for protection there. And I think by dismissing SMEs, you can cut off quite a wealth of sites that have the stock of products that you're looking for that maybe your big retailing names won't. So even more recently, bikes, beanbags, weirdly beanbags and seeds. At the start of the lockdown, people were looking to get out and exercise in methods they probably wouldn't have done before. And so the big chain brands, the Wiggles of this world, for example, they ran out of bikes and they couldn't get the stock in quickly. But we actually worked with a number of SMEs that did have stock of bikes, and people wanted to find these bikes. So using the likes of the CSS partners allowed us to get these SMEs in front of people that were looking for specific products. So I think to not work with SMEs, it doesn't make sense when at the end of the day the product comes first, especially right now anyway.
You haven't ruined the surprise for your girlfriend there, have you?
No, thankfully it's already been and gone.
Cool.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, we've had some wonderful nuggets of success with, cycling you mentioned has been massive during the lockdown. And we work with a company called PitPat who do sort of like fitness training devices for dogs. Obviously pet ownership has taken off enormously. And I think it's just wonderful when you can really get under the skin of a new small business and really understand what they're trying to do and how they're growing. And of course, with Google Shopping specifically, it tends to over-index quite well for driving new customers, be that to a very established brand or a new brand. So often when you're working with a smaller business, they'll be more flexible on the CPAs that they can experiment with and test, so you can actually drive their visibility in that space that would perhaps previously been more dominated by big brands, which is great.
And is it if you were kind of giving advice to an SME around kind of working in that channel and working with publishers, is it easy to compete in that space, or is it kind of already, because I've experienced working in telco and the aggregator space, so the site price comparison sites, for instance. It's very, very hard to compete in those spaces with the bigger brands because they're able to offer these bigger discounts or better deals, essentially. So I'm not that knowledgeable about CSS, but is it easy to compete with the bigger brands in that space?
It can be. The key things, and this is where we say if an SME is looking to work with a publisher like Genie Shopping, really engage with them, really ask the questions and push to get your products and your business recognized and supported well. We do have some extremely active managing directors or commercial directors of very small businesses who will be looking at their ads. They'll be looking for them. They'll be looking, trying to see what coverage they're getting, and they may be contacting us a lot in the early days to say, why are we showing for this? Can we show for this? How do we compete more? And it's that enthusiasm and desire to get in front of the consumer that helps to get everything right in the first place. It could be feeds, it could be that they work really hard on getting the descriptions right, so we show for more results. And so absolutely you can get the coverage in a competitive space. if you're willing to approach it in the right way and ask the right questions.
Brilliant, thank you. Obviously, I mentioned previously around like 90% of businesses in the UK are made up of SMEs. The current climate and the kind of economical landscape at the moment, how important is it, do you feel, to have kind of a range of clients and not have all your eggs in one basket?
To have a wide variance of different brands and verticals within the Webgains network specifically has been massive. We had a massive downturn with travel, which has been disappointing, but again, the brands couldn't really do much about that. It's been enforced by third-party outsiders. So, you know, people can't travel, but they have put their money into other areas. So home, leisure, fitness, as we kind of said there. People wanted to go out on bikes and would pay top prices to get access to those. It was definitely a supply and demand kind of situation there. So I think that's the name of the game for most businesses, isn't it? To have a variance where you can adapt and improvise and overcome any sort of obstacles that you come across. I don't know, for Joe, you know, for those kind of situations, I guess for you guys is the same, right?
Yeah, similar. I mean, we don't really work with travel on Google Shopping, but one of the interesting things is the developments in the shopping service as it's grown over the last few years. So, for example, I think originally it was very hard to work with any kind of subscription services, but now that's possible. So, you know, by keeping your finger on the pulse and keeping up with the developments and talking to different retailers, sometimes you can find opportunities to work with retailers that we thought perhaps we couldn't do originally, and some have been pretty successful. So that's really important, and also the seasonality issue. So, you know, I mean, it's this last year is particularly difficult, but you know, as we start to learn more about which products are selling well at what times of year, having that really wide variety of retailers means that we're having peaks and troughs of different products at different times of year, which really helps to balance out what we're doing.
Yeah, great. I've seen it as well in some verticals where publishers have been very reliant on sort of one or two advertisers, particularly in the travel vertical, to be honest. And I think there's a lot of risk there as well, not just from the fact that, you know, if something goes wrong with, like, you know, one of those advertisers, then you're going to lose huge amounts of revenue coming into you as a publisher. You know, if you're suddenly supporting someone and they go out of business, then you've got no one else to support at that point. But also from like the perspective of power. So, you know, if you rely heavily on one person, they can effectively dictate the terms and the commercials in that relationship and really squeeze you until there's kind of a decision to be made. And I've seen it a few times in companies where it's like, well, actually, you know, is it worth us continuing in this channel if we're being squeezed by this partner? You know, our sales are suddenly costing us more than when we're making off them. So you have to make that decision as a business. So I think, you know, from a kind of financial risk point of view, is definitely a benefit to split out your kind of business across a number of partners and not kind of focus on solely just, you know, providing one person with that. Cool. Just moving on to my last question, really. If you could give advice to SMEs around the best way to approach working with publishers and getting them on board, what would it be? And I'll start with Joe, just around kind of working with CSS. Like, what advice would you give to SMEs around that? And then we'll move to Jack as a kind of from a network point of view and lots of different publishers.
Sure, I think we touched on this a bit before, really. My key advice would be reach out on a personal level. You know, whether you're working with the support of an account manager in an affiliate network or not, be prepared to get engaged with the publisher or the partner that you're seeking to work with. Have an initial kickoff call. You know, read all the documents, take the advice that we would be able to provide, and that will cover things like your CPA setting strategy, bidding to margins that are available across different product groups. Making sure the feed is tip top, all of that stuff, and check in, you know, once things go live. Don't expect the publisher to just be able to make it work. Make a bit of noise, make yourself known, build that relationship, and I think that just really pays dividends. I think it's a lot of it's just about that personal touch, really, for us, and we like working that way with our retailers.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I mean, it's always nice to build a relationship with the people you're working with, isn't it? It does make things a lot easier.
I would have to agree with Joe completely. I think from a network point of view, we want people to be inquisitive, to ask questions, rather than just sort of say no to things straight up because of, how they've originally foreseen something or they've heard something. Why don't reach out and find out? So, a lot of brands want to steer clear of discounting because they fear it would damage the brand. Reach out and find out what you could do though to leverage those publishers, and it would be to be inquisitive completely, want to learn and put that time in. I think it can be time intensive, but I think that the benefit long term of doing that and being involved on a personal level with your program sets you off in the best way moving forward.
Yeah, I only asked that question because it was something I was asked the other day about, what advice would you give them? And I think, my advice is, get in there, don't expect immediate results. I think, like Joe said, don't expect it to, you have to put a little bit in to start with, but ultimately when you're working with these big publishers, you will get the reward from them because they have such a user base and such a not just a large user base, but like a highly engaged user base as well. And they do tend to, particularly with like the likes of cashback sites and things like that, they do tend to use those platforms as their kind of shopping platform. So, you've kind of got to be there to take use of that. And a lot of those users there, you're not going to get anywhere else. So I think, like Joe said, just be patient. But ultimately, I think, if you do things right and you do form a relationship, then the rewards will come.
I think it's also worth saying that it's really critical and helpful for us if retailers want to let us know as much about their successes and their challenges as they can. Share bestseller lists, keep us informed of promotions, and make sure those are represented in the feed. And just generally, once it's up and running, don't forget that things are going to change as they go forward, and there's always optimization that can be done.
Yeah, I think with CSS as well, Joe, is that, and I might be wrong here, but from my experience, advertiser side, is that you tend to get a lot of pushback, specifically with CSS, because internally people want to hold on to their channels, and so that they'll be straight away like, no, we do our own Google shopping, we don't want any other partners, and it's about the affiliate channel specific individuals to be able to say, actually, no, I've been educated on this enough to say it won't impact what we're doing. In fact, it will actually help. And we get it a lot with tech partners as well. It's site overlays, brands like Monetate who do it specifically, but having been educated on publishers that are out there, you can do exactly what Monetate does, but on a CPA level within the affiliate channel. So I guess it's about empowering the people. For us as a network, it's about empowering and educating people to then go back into their business and form a better, I want to say argument for lack of a better word, but a better proposal to then say, actually, no, we should do this because it won't impact any of our Google shopping strategy. If anything, it's going to help us dominate that area. And there's no real upfront risk or cost to it, so why wouldn't you?
It's about helping to protect your strategy as opposed to competing with it.
And I think the thing is that we need to just empower people as a network, but I guess we also need from the people, from the SMEs and any business, is that they need to have the want to go in and learn about it and to take that away with them.
Hopefully that's the sort of thing we're doing with this sort of event. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any other questions. I think we probably moved a little bit away from the original question, but I still found it quite informative and a great chat. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here. And just thanks a lot. And when this goes out eventually, we'll hopefully not look too bad.
Thanks very much. That was fun.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.